This broadcast of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Welcome then, folks, back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of Season 5, Round 4 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by Malwa Transport and live exclusively on TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark. You join us here in the land down under, reeling away from what's been an exciting triad of events to kick off the season into the first double sprint here at Mount Panorama on the outskirts of Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. This mighty circuit was founded in 1938, comprised of 23 turns and 6.2 kilometres. That's 3.8 miles of FIA Grade 3. Home of the Bathurst 1000 and the Bathurst 12 Hour across the Supercars Championship and the Intercontinental GT Series. This track is unilaterally feared across the world of motorsport and revered all throughout. It is a fantastic circuit that has given us absolute riots of racing throughout many different series we've covered here on TRTN. It's our second time visiting the circuit since Season 2. That last round was won by Ian Skeen in his drive with Aston Martin. We're on board today here with Taylor Wolford for his home race with the VEC Esports Team number 6 Porsche. Things are looking rather interesting on the run in towards the championship today. Starting things off then with a look through some of the new regulations to drop from round 3 onwards. First of which, the drop point system. Introduced from round 3 onwards, nullifying the 2 worst results of the season. You know it, and some drivers love it. It's a cumulative system that progresses with the season. The idea is to give the competitors their best chance against unpredictable odds such as disconnects, outages, technical failures, etc. And I suppose given the state of affairs here on Assetto Corsa Competizione in the last couple of weeks, that is quite well timed. Investigated by the stewards team to ensure that the system isn't being abused for deliberate DNF farming and is administered automatically after every single round. That'll explain why the standings are going to look a little bit more on the odd side here for round 4, as the previous 2 worst results of the 3 rounds ran so far are going to be cut away from the points contributions. Getting onto that in a moment's time, though, taking a look here into round 4 of the championship. Here is the current WOD of Success Ballast Regs. Melvin Milliston now 10 kilos heavier than he was the start of this season. Cas van Veltzen with 8 kilos on, LeBay, Beefgartner and Alexander all with 3 kilos on. Carlos Disch after his technical win from the rookies, but one technically as a reserve. We'll see how that ranks up later in the season. Nonetheless, he's got 2 kilos on for finishing in the top 4. Fake Galaxy was alongside him there for a single kilo on, matching the current weight ballast changes for Tyler Vermack, also a single kilo. Looking at things after 46 races of the NLRL Sunday League, we are starting to see the same patterns that formed up into a season of Milliston-led dominance last season in Season 4, with a opening win then and a 4th career for Cas van Veltzen in the opening round in Suzuka. It's since been back-to-back victories for Melvin Milliston. Taking a look then into the current WOD of the championship standings, starting things off on the teams championships. You can see that the points have been heavily reduced because the last 2 points hauls have been nullified. The 2 worst points hauls, I should say, have been nullified for these teams. Nonetheless, it still paints the same picture we saw from the last round. Euro Titans in the lead of Season 5's teams championships. They're ahead of 5-Star Esports as it stands for this round by 23 points. Velocity third, of course, the Season 4 teams champions, and still on the charge, the single-man operation of Melvin Milliston, still hard at work here. Third place outright in the teams championship. TSRC in 4th with Malwa in 5th, LMP in 6th, Team FBR 7th, Nexus GT 8th, Hogyanos 9th, and MSR round out the top 10. Looking into the rookies championship with the drop point system active, we find that it has really mixed things up a little here. Taking a look, Kieran Rodd and Jason Didonna joint first, 45 points between Ford and Nissan at the front of the field. And we do see that is slightly inaccurate. It says after round 2. As a matter of fact, that is after round 3 of the championship, as you'll quickly see there. Now, after round 3 of the championship, behind them, Ben Meredith at definitive 4th, John O'Driscoll definitive, Meredith at definitive 3rd, John O'Driscoll definitive 4th, and Michael Harris in a definitive 5th place. Behind them, a 3-way split for 6th place between Johnson, Hunt and Wilson, Porsche, BMW and McLaren, all with 24 points there, fighting for 1 position amongst that top 10. Behind them, another joint position for 9th place to round out the top 10, Gioette Boris versus Sam Greaves, both of them with 21 points a piece there in the championship. Looking at the regulations for today before we get into the scope of the overall standings and for the fight of the championship, we see here the double sprint format makes its way in for the first appearance of Season 5. Free practice we're in the midst of at the moment, 10 minutes coming up around the corner. That single static qualifying session, 20 minutes, will decide the grid for both Race 1 and Race 2 30 minutes apiece with a mandatory pit stop per race for open fuel time and strategy. 3.2 seconds minimum stop in the pit lane. So very quick, very snappy strategies coming up around the corner. As we cut away then from that of Taylor Wolford, we see here with Sam Angel with Aston Martin. Now as we get underway on the discussions of the overall championship standings, it's a joint first place here between Cas van Velzen and Melvin Milliston at the front of the field, 48 points apiece after the drop point system has been activated. Alan Alexander in third place overall with 35 points. Behind him is Carlos Diesch in fourth. He's in a joint fourth alongside Zolt Beefgartner, both of which with 30 points to their name. A joint sixth from behind them currently exists between that of Kieran Rodd and Ian Skeen, 24 points apiece behind them. A joint 8th place between Jason Didona and Stefan Nicolai, both with 21 points. Rounding out the top 10, a definitive top 10 position there, 10th for Brooklyn Donkin, 18 points in the overall championship standings. Well, with about 3.5 minutes left to go there, we are just around the corner from the start of qualifying. Before we get to that point, though, let's get a look, A, at the timings for this session, and B, at the balance of performance. We see that Stefan Nicolai currently fastest, Van Velzen second, Alexander third, Skeen, last time winner here in Bathurst, now on his drive for Mercedes away from Aston Martin, currently fourth, with Angel across the line a moment ago to sixth. O'Driscoll in fifth there, O'Driscoll sixth. We saw Jenkins 7th, Taylor Wolford on his home race in the number 6, 8th place. And we see across the line a moment ago was the 68, Michael Hunt, in 9th. Recent shift there, Skeen up to 3rd. Let's get a look at the balance of performance before we get in towards qualifying today. Taking a look here, and we have quite the extensive list to cover. 40 kilos off for the V12 Vantage, the Ferrari 296 with 25 kilos off, Lexus with 21, Porsche with 20, Nissan with 17, BMW with 16, Mercedes with 11, Aston Martin's V8 Vantage with 7, Lamborghini with 3, and Bentley with 1 in terms of reductions to weight. Recently, we just saw there Vermac now having moved to BMW, now fastest in the session, 201.807, but he's looking to have competition heading in towards round 4. Ford Performance then find themselves again on the short end of the stick, 20 kilos on the Mustang. McLaren joining them in the weight gain department as they have 8 kilos on to the 720S. Now, something does rather confuse me here because there was quite high hopes heading in towards this round of the championship for the appearance of one Carlos Diesch. The timings and qualifying predictions had a lot of it predicted that the 545 would be able to duke things out for the lead of this race. But as of presently, with 23 cars on the track, we'd yet to see either Carlos Diesch or, for that matter, Fate Galaxy. Just coming towards the trailing end of free practice, qualifying just around the corner. Nicolai second fastest, Alexander third, Van Velzen down to 4th, Skeen down to 5th, O'Driscoll 6th, Jenkins 7th, Angel 8th, Meredith 9th, and Wolford in 10th. Rounding out the current timings, Keto and Hunt 11th and 12th. We do have some new drivers on the field for today as well. Taking a look here, one of the reserve entries for round 4 of the championship. And this is Noah Montag in the number 95 BMW. Still in the pit lane waiting for his first appearance on the track during the run of qualifying just around the corner. In the last minute then of free practice, let's go and catch on board with some drivers down towards the line. We see here for Kyle Jenkins with Ferrari, looking to get up and ahead of his fellow Ferrari into that 3rd row by the end of free practice here, that being John O'Driscoll, up and ahead of him by the scope of about 0.6 of a second, a little over actually, 635 thousandths to be precise. But across the line goes Jenkins to 6th place at the end of free practice. Bear in mind, he still has enough time for one more go around the track, having crossed the line before the end of the session. We'll see whether or not he chooses to act upon that. We see joining right in the trailing end here is Carlos Diesch. Carlos Diesch and Fake Galaxy. Keep a close eye on these two. You'll have no doubts recalling these two drivers when I go by his alias here for Carlos Diesch. That, if you've been watching us on VSR, is White Doctor, 2-time champion in VSR Phoenix's GT3 series, and now makes his way into the Sunday League grid. Of course, we saw the debut between Carlos Diesch and Fate Galaxy, sometimes also goes by Riyad Yasarevich in the last round in Zolder, but now we get to see what they can do as things look poised for an outright victory claim in the case of the 545. We'll see how that pans out when the qualifying predictions come around and we get into qualifying just around the corner. 20 minutes of quality to follow here in the Sunday League. Some of the major articles of news as well is that Season 1's champion Christian Lebay has withdrawn from the Sunday League until further notice. So it's a shame then after 46 races we'll not be able to see the 119 here on today's grid. We do hope to see him again on the grid some other day, but today simply won't be that time. So we focus our attention to the next generation. We see still tucked into the paddocks there. That's the number 1. Two-time champion, of course, defending two-time champion Melvin Milliston with Velocity Racing Team. It'll be curious to see what he can do then as things look poised for Carlos Dietsch to claim victory in the qualifying session to follow. We'll see exactly how things balance out. Waiting to the line then, we have a few more drivers to find here. Among them we saw starting this flying lap is Kyle Jenkins with Ferrari, making his way down through the chase. Of course, we'll get a full tour of the track during qualifying just around the corner. We see here though, for Jenkins, down towards the line, up and ahead of Beef Gardner and O'Driscoll to make it to the third row here. If this were qualifying, he'd be starting alongside Ian Skeen. Bear in mind, expectations rather high here for Skeen. Had a fantastic round before in that of Zolder. Brilliant, brilliant drive for him. And as we see there, Jenkins across the line finishes 6th in this session. The 313 nearby to the lines. We go to catch on board here with the Ferrari of Ben Meredith. Just across the line here from 10th to 9th, up and ahead of Sam Angel. Nearest to the line, the 95, but it appears to be on an invalid lap, so we'll go to check in here. This is with Noah Montag with BMW. Also out on track, the 96. That being Sam Greaves with BMW. See here, Montag to the line. Those silver placards represent reserve drivers, so that currently comprises, peculiarly still, Michael Harris, which is a curious case when you consider he is actually in, I believe, the Rookies Championship. So I believe that's just a little bit of an error in the processing for that lineup. Nonetheless, he somehow finds himself as a reserve for this race. We see Sam Greaves to the line to bring about the end of free practice. In towards qualifying then. 20 minutes of qualifying will decide the grid for both races to come here in round 4's Bathurst double sprint for the NLRL Sunday League Season 5. First among the fray looks to be Zolt Beefgartner behind him. Melvin Milliston, you can see Ian Skeen, the last driver to win here in Bathurst in the Sunday League way back in Season 2. Led in the first ever Manufacturers 1-2 in the series' history. It was he and Christian LeBay to form the basis of a first ever Manufacturer 1-2. That was for Aston Martin back in Season 2's running of Bathurst. We return to the circuit then after 2 long seasons away from this magnificent stretch of tarmac. We see here with Beefgartner leading the charge. Let's get thick and fast into the conversation of the qualifying predictions for this grid here, round 4 of the championship. Bringing it up then, Carlos Dietsch, talk of the town, 201.075. He is nearly 7/10ths up over Tyler Vermack in second. Oh, into the wall in the background there. That was Melvin Milliston in trouble with the McLaren. Big trouble down at Reed, Solman and McPhillamy just past the wall of death. That's Milliston back into the pit lanes. Refresh and resolve there for the McLaren. Further talks then. Vermack second, Galaxy third, Van Veltzen fourth. Beefgartner on your screens here predicted at a top 5 appearance. 5th place with the 202.772 as according to Simbot data. Stefan Nikolai in 6th place ahead of Alan Alexander in 7th. Kyle Jenkins 8th, Brooklyn Donkin 9th, and Richard Betterson in the top 10. With a grid of 28 cars here, there's plenty of drivers perhaps obfuscated from that data. Plenty of blind spots to be had in that prediction of the top 10, but that's off the data we have, and we'll see here for Beefgartner, a driver who's predicted among that top 5. Can he deliver on such expectations? Well, we'll stay on board with the 599, our unofficial tour guide here of the Mount Panorama circuit, getting down towards Murray's Corner. On board then with Zolt Beefgartner. The tremendous sound of that 5.4 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine heralds our arrival to the start of the first flying laps of the session. Down through Hell Corner, down at turn 1. A bit of a wide run out there for Beefgartner on the start of things on the run up the mountain straight. This is one of 2 major straightaway sections, the other being the Conrod straight on the exit of turn 18. This, though, gives us our first major attacking spot down towards Griffin's Bend at turn 2. This begins the ascent uphill. We see they're pulling to one side. That was Ben Hart in the number 40, allowing Beefgartner through. Up through Griffin's Bend we go. In towards the cuttings then. Very claustrophobic section of the track coming up here through turns 3 and 4. You can see he really has to hook it in. Very easy to understeer off into the walls there. Now up through Quarry Corner. And here comes a fantastic stretch of tarmac coming up through Frog Hollow into Reed Park. Up through Solman. Now to McPhillamy, past the wall of death there on our right-hand side. Through McPhillamy Park, down towards Brock Skyline, sometimes also just called Skyline, named after Australian touring car legend Peter Brock. Overlooks the skyline there of the town of Bathurst, down through the Dipper into the S's. Down through the Forest Elbow, very wobbly run in there, and he touches the wall. Trouble for Beefgartner down through the run of things at Forest Elbow, so he tunes out of that leading position of the charge of qualifying. We'll go to catch on board here. I believe that's the 696, so who better to get on board here with another track guide than with that? Well, the last man to win here in Bathurst in the Sunday League, Ian Skeen, with Mercedes AMG and Euro Titans Endurance. He's on the run down the Conrod Straight, so this is the longer of the two. The Mountain Straight, 1.1 kilometers, Conrod, 1.9, and it gives us the run here down towards turn 20, 21, and 22 at the Chase. Also referred to sometimes as the Caltex Chase, named after the petrochemical company of the same name. Down towards Murray's, turn 23. Named after Australian touring car legend Bill Murray. Not to be confused with the actor of the same name. Down to the line, Ian Skeen, the first time on the charts, 204.212. So you see it was a bit of a rocky start for things. Sam Angel up and ahead with Aston Martin, then Cas van Velzen, then Tyler Vermaak from behind. 315 coming to the line next. Alan Alexander, a driver who laid in heavy expectations over the course of Season 4. The first ever Porsche to win in this series. Moreover, he was the first ever rookie to win outright. Now on his pro season drive. Let's see what he can do here in Bathurst. Third fastest. We've seen Porsche win here before in Bathurst over on the Console Endurance Series. Carlos Disch across the line behind Vermaak by 55 thousandths. These two have shared a grid before over on VSR. They know the conditions at play here. Carlos Disch is looking ultra competitive for this round. Qualifying. Fake Galaxy across the line to fifth fastest. The 95 from behind them to the line. So it appeared maybe not a time onto the charts there, reluctantly so. Number 26 across the line a moment ago. Same story. Number 74 will go and catch on board here with Sergio Belda. Hocchianos Motorsports' McLaren across the line, ninth fastest. From behind them, the 313, Ben Meredith, up to sixth. Number 34 ran into trouble on his run down through the Chase. And back into the pit lane they go. The number 5 nearest the line. Let's go and catch on board here. This was with Stefan Nicolai. Behind him, we see the number 117, another new driver on the field here, Robert Smith with BW Motorsports. Across the line then goes Nicolai. Not to put a time on the charts there. So we see from behind it will be Smith to put times on the charts. Now up and ahead of Skeen and 8th fastest in this session. Number 67, Gioette Boris across the line. MSR now up to 6th place from behind them. Here comes Melvin Milliston. Better late than never for the number 1 McLaren. Across the line he goes, but not yet onto the timing charts. A curious one then for Melvin Milliston. So we're just over a quarter of the way into qualifying. Normally, we are usually expecting to see some more times on the charts here for them. The 696 across the line a moment ago. Ian Skeen onto another flying lap from behind him. Sam Angel in 8th place. 314 across the line a moment ago. Cas van Velzen advances to 3rd. Number 509 to the line. If I'm not mistaken there, 509. Unless my eyesight is... No, 599. My mistake there. That would have been for Zolt Beefgartner. Of course, the driver we caught on with at the start of this qualifying session did have some major troubles at hand when it came to Forest Elbow down in Sector 3. We see Fake Galaxy advances to 3rd, now pushing Van Velzen to 4th. It's Vermaak to lead this session in the number 8 BMW for 5-Star Esports. It's a 5-star 1, 2, and 3 here. The team has been waiting for this golden moment to arrive for them. Today could very well be the case. Double points opportunities with 2 races to follow. And so far, so good in their qualifying endeavours. Things are looking to get very, very spicy here in Bathurst. Galaxy 3rd, Disch in 2nd, Vermaak 1st. Tyler Vermaak has won on this track many a time before. We see in front of him there, big trouble for Sam Angel back into the pits after some serious trouble for him stability-wise down through Skyline. Nearest to the line, the number 5. So we'll go and catch on board once again with Stefan Nicolai. To the line he goes. Cross the line, now it's a 4 fastest. Number 117 across the line, Robert Smith with BW Motorsports on his debut round to the Sunday League. Joins in with quite an impressive time so far. He's in the top 10, up and ahead of Gio Boris and Ben Meredith and Sam Angel to make 7th place in the 117. Number 1 across the line, Melvin Milliston, now 5th. And it's very curious to see that the 3rd row is where we find our current championship leading duo, Van Veltzen and Milliston. We do actually see there, I think that was a... Oh, yes, there was a bit of a disconnect there for... Yes, the 545. Carlos Deach just had a little bit of trouble with some connections to the lobby. Now, I believe that is a local issue for Deach and not a reflection of the server. We can see that a few drivers are experiencing high ping. Deach among them. The only other driver is the one competing for a home race here, Taylor Wolford, in the number 6. Got to hand it to him here. Of course, having worked with the folks over at AXRL, we're very much so aware of the 11-hour plus time gap between us and Australia. So, got to hand it to him here, showing up for this race at the time that it is for him. That's impressive. Currently finds himself not too shy, actually, of a top 10. We take a look at that gap, and it is razor thin between the 10th through 14th run of things. See, between Gio Boris and Kyle Jenkins, there's only 130 thousandths of a second to be had between the pair. Taking a look up over the front here, Fate Galaxy second fastest, and by 5 thousandths behind Vermac. Bear in mind, those forwards are a formidable offering on the Conrad and Mountain Straights. That does put a bit of a shiver then on BMW's doorstep, because Tyler Vermac is very much so looking to be hunted down by both Fords, starting right behind him. 201.405. Vermac was looking confident in the qualifying predictions. What on earth was that in the background? Was that Van Veltzen? It was. He was riding the wall. What on earth just happened there? Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to show you the replay. It would reset the session timer, but that was Cas Van Veltzen driving on the wall in the background. Milliston up and ahead of him then to 4th, as he most recently went up and ahead of Milliston. So these two, your current championship leaders, joint on points under the drop point system's introduction here for round 4. Find themselves starting not on the 2nd row per se, but onto that 3rd row as well. We'll see what challenge can be brought their way by drivers behind them like Stefan Nicolai, who was briefly in the scope of that top 5. We see Milliston here just on the trailing end of that 2nd row, Van Veltzen on the 3rd row. But both of them starting outside of those podium positions right now, occupied by Deach, Galaxy and Vermac for a 5-star 1, 2, 3. Now, we've been saying for some time, Euro Titans have come into this championship with a vengeance. They're not looking to play around. It's gloves off in the talks of the team's championship, but we are seeing with the recent deployment, as it were, of Deach and Galaxy, and I say that because these two operate like weapons of war on the circuits like this, is definitely going to bring great fortune over towards the 5-star esports team. They've still yet to have found a team's championship in the Sunday League since its introduction as a championship in Season 3. In the time since, though, we've seen 2 different teams come along to win those championships. Malwar Racing in Season 3 and Velocity Racing, courtesy of that single-man operation from Melvin Milliston in Season 4 just gone by. We could be seeing then the dawn of a new era here in the team's championship in the talks between 2 major parties, 5-star esports. After a long time spent rebuilding their lineups, after significant reforms to the lineups at the 5-star team, also since their noticeable rebrand away from what they used to be known as K1 Esports. And we also see that now on the other half of it is going to be Euro Titans, a team that we have watched rise through those ranks in the last couple of years. This is going to be a very exciting clash of the worlds here. We see, sticking their head in the middle of it all, Melvin Milliston now to 3rd, and by 255 thousandths away from the fastest time, a quarter of a second away from being on the front row when considering Fate Galaxy's time, only 5 thousandths away. 5:45 coming to the line. Carlos Deach, can he retake 3rd place? Across the line, needed 22 thousandths of a second. Couldn't find it in that last lap. Either that or he's on to another flying lap. From behind him, the 3:15 across the line a moment ago. And in the case there of Alan Alexander, he's into the top 10 ahead of Jenkins, but hanging on to that 5th row. Number 719, nearest to the line. We've seen some troubles today for Sam Angel's Aston Martin. Bear in mind, they were the winning manufacturer here in Bathurst back in Season 2, courtesy of Ian Skeen, now driving in the 696 AMG. Speaking of Skeen, we see the 696 on his way down towards the line here. 16th in the session thus far. The 54 out in front of him. You see Skeen down to the line here from 16th. Bear in mind, he had a formidable drive in Zolder, and we see him pick up all the pieces there to 7th now, just tucked in behind Zolt Beefgartner by 17 thousandths of a second. Bear in mind, the gap's closer still when considering just behind him by, as it looks there, that might... Oh no, actually, that's by a single thousandth in difference, 18 thousandths. So the gap actually larger between a joint 8th amongst that of two Fords here. The number 5, Stefan Nikolai, and the number 61 of Kieran Rodd, currently in that joint lead of the Rookies Championship alongside Jason Didonna with Nissan. As it appears, though, just scrolling through the grid here, we can't seem to find any look of the Nissan. So with Didonna potentially an absentee of this round of the championship, this could give much better credence to opening things back up now in the face of the drop point system for Kieran Rodd and the 61 for Euro Titans. Track conditions currently 41 degrees. It is searing conditions here in Bathurst. Very characteristic Aussie sunshine kicking down the track here for round 4. 34 degrees ambient. And no imminent threat of rain in this session. We cannot speak, though, for what the race will look like. 2 30-minute races around the corner here. 5.5 minutes left to go of qualifying. We're on board here with Kieran Rodd as he launches downhill in the number 61. Currently joint by the 1,000th to the same time of Stefan Nikolai in 8th. That 4th into 5th row there, super, super close. Things still incredibly close over the front of the field. Tyler Vermack leads in this session in the number 8. Fate Galaxy in 2nd with Carlos Dish in 3rd. Those three separate by less than 0.2 of a second. When talking about drivers separated within a second front to back, we go from 1st all the way to 9th there, back into the conversation of Kieran Rodd and Stefan Nikolai. They find themselves 955 thousandths off of the fastest time. 696 across the line. Ian Skeen from 7th. Stays 7th there, still 17 thousandths away from the 599. The 420 across the line a moment ago. And that was for John O'Driscoll, 15th there. Only off of Ben Meredith by, as of the scope of it, I believe, taking a look there, that is by 56 thousandths, if I'm not mistaken, of a second. Yes, 56 thousandths between 14th and 15th place. Near to the line, we can see a whole wad of traffic, and we're going to go and try to catch on board here with some of the drivers among them. I believe we saw the number 40 there was Ben Hart, just in the trailing end of that traffic, the 91 in front of him. But now we see Hart onto the timing charts, 21st in this session, just tucked in behind newcomer Noah Montag in the number 95. Just shy of 4 minutes left to go then. Nearest to the line, the 55. We go to catch on board here. 5 thousandths hangs in the balance for pole position, and taking pole with a 201.302 goes Fake Galaxy. A driver who took 4 consecutive victories in the trailing end of Season 10 of VSR Phoenix now makes his way into his second running of things in the Sunday League to pole. But then retaking pole position, Carlos Dish, 2-time VSR champion, second appearance in the Sunday League. Both he and Galaxy sharing the stage for that remark. Both drivers we've seen before in VSR now make their way into this series after Zolder leading that charge, still part of the 5-star 1-2-3. Tyler Vermack now sort of demoted from pole to 3rd, still part of the 5-star 1-2-3. 117 nearest to the line, Robert Smith on his inaugural drive to this championship, up to 11th. So we're seeing some great hustle here from Ford on a circuit they have already exhibited great confidence at as a manufacturer. They have great knowledge of this circuit in their time developing in the Gen 3 era of the supercars, era for the Australian Touring Car Championship, otherwise known as supercars. But that 7th gen Mustang has seen plenty of action already at this circuit. It's almost by instinct then that Ford has this one in the bag. They still have competition to consider from BMW and McLaren. As it stands, though, a Ford 1-2. Bear in mind, Ford had a 1-2-3 back in Season 3. That was at Brands Hatch. So this manufacturer knows a thing or two on race-winning material. First ever driver to win with Ford as well was Martijn van Manen. Season 1, Round 5 at Indianapolis. A win at home for Ford. Today here, though, in the land down under, this is going to be quite the exciting show. We're still not done yet with qualifying. 91 nearest to the line. And that was, I believe, for... taking a look here, that would have been it for Ivan Sanchez. 27th in the session. 55 nearby to the line, but Fate Galaxy pumping the brakes just before Murray's charging up for another flying lap. 130 thousandths away from his teammate at the front of the field. 545. We see here Carlos Deitch down through turn 23. Behind him, the 313 Ben Meredith in this session, currently 15th. Deitch across the line. As it stands there, no extension over his fastest. We see for the 313 from 15th on the track. Stays there across the line. The 95 nearest to him, Noah Montag, from 21st. Across the line, stays there. 54 across the line a moment ago. As it stood there for the number 54. That was Josh Welbelove of Nexus GT. So we see there off on the side of the track, the 67. That's Gioette Boris with Porsche. Now back into the paddock. We go to catch on board here with a new string of drivers down towards the line. Melvin Milliston, two-time champion in this series, looking to take the lead here off of Cas van Velzen in the championship standings. Currently qualifies ahead of Van Velzen, but I think we are about to see the new generation of possible champions lean into frame. Milliston across the line onto his last flying lap of the session. From behind him was the 315 across the line a moment ago. Alan Alexander still holding on to a top 10 in quali. Number 420 across the line a moment ago. John O'Driscoll now to 11th with Ferrari. Number 6, Taylor Wolford, nearest to the line. From 17th across the line he goes. Still super close margins for a possible top 15 start here. Still has one more opportunity in the bag before the end of quali today. Nearest to the line, number 599, Zolt Beefgartner. We saw across the line a moment ago the number 61 peel into frame. Kieran Rodd, 9th place ahead of his teammate Alan Alexander. Zolt Beefgartner with TSRC Esports across the line there. Just onto one more flying lap. Beats the bell by milliseconds to 6th. Stays 6th place then. One more flying lap in the bag for him. We're about to see to the line here. Ben Hart from 22nd. Can he go ahead of Montag? Yes, he can. And he goes once more up ahead. Another BMW there. Michael Hunt in the number 68. Now down to 21st. Ben Hart starts in the top 20 in this session. Trying to get my words together. The 55. Fate Galaxy on pole in the trailing end then. Carlos Deitch takes it back by 300ths of a second. The 313 to the line. Ben Meredith 15th. Carlos Deitch on pole. 95 nearest to the line. Noah Montag ends his first qualifying session of the Sunday League. 22nd in the number 95 BMW. Nearby then, on his run down towards the chase, we see traffic possibly standing in the way of two cars here. Among them, Melvin Milliston. Bear in mind, having qualified ahead of his championship rival, Cas van Velzen, is playing second fiddle outside of the podium. Milliston peels into the pit lane. It's Alexander's game to play here. Can he advance up past 9th? His teammate only a few tenths in front. Down to the line, goes to 315. Can he have it in the end of qualifying? There was an improvement, but sadly, not enough for position this time around. Going to catch on board, Taylor Wolford, just as we caught him there, steps out wide at the chase, soaring on through by millimeters, the 61 of Kieran Rodd, currently joint leader of the Rookies Championship. Where can he place things here? With joint level times to Stefan Nikolai, needed a single thousandth for 8th. Across the line, he says, I'll take once more, goes up ahead of Ian Skeen to 7th. One of the leading drivers now in the lineup for Euro Titans, the fastest of the Euro Titans ensemble, Cas van Velzen, 5th place. Nearest to the line, the 599 will go to catch here. Zolt Beefgartner, can he make the top 5? Not this time around. Spare of it by 130 thousandths of a second. What a qualifying session. 5-star, 1, 2, 3 lockout. Carlos Deitch on his second race in to the NLRL Sunday League on pole by 300ths ahead of Fate Galaxy. I think we may have the two parts of a possible two-horse race here in both races to follow here in Bathurst. What a qualifying session to have right here at round 4. Taking a look at those session regulations one more time before we get into the scope of race 1 today. We can see 30-minute races coming up, race 1 and race 2, both decided by the grid we've just seen form up in qualifying today. 1 mandatory pit stop per race on an open fuel time of a minimum 3.2 seconds. A stop and drop run of things here in Bathurst, and it is going to make for some absolutely spectacular racing today, judging off of that qualifying grid. The session ended out with only 5 cars within a second of that leading time, but a 2:01.010, the fastest time here in Bathurst by Carlos Dish. Bear in mind, if he's able to elevate things in the next 30 minutes into a race win, he will join the history books here on the NLRL Sunday League to become the first Swiss driver to win in the series. He would add Switzerland to the charts alongside Britain, the Netherlands, Sweden, America, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Belgium, and South Africa as race-winning nations in this series. Let's see if he can deliver on that, or will it be Fate Galaxy for Austria? Let's find out. This is going to be some real cinema. Do thoroughly look forward to this one. Before we get onto that grid, though, one article of news, of course, hot off the press. I'm sure plenty of you were paying close attention to the state of affairs in Formula 1, and it was George Russell to win the Australian Grand Prix. A Mercedes 1-2 for both Russell and Andrea Kimi Antonelli. A very chaotic start to the 2026 season. Soviet Mario 911 saying, I'm Scottish, not British. Well, for your information, the first British driver to have won in this series was not you. It was Louis Baptiste. Season 1, round 2 in Silverstone for McLaren. Also has that joint record. Actually, no, not a joint record. Sorry, the first McLaren was Wesley Kuiper back in Season 1, round 1 at Misano. Well, let's get a look at the grid here and now. No time for reminiscing. Let's get a look into this grid, and what a grid it is. Carlos Dish on pole position, part of that 5-star 1, 2, 3 alongside him. The twin Mustangs then, the 545 and the 55 Fate Galaxy, otherwise known as Riyad Yasarevich. The 55 second place, and right behind them then Tyler Vermack on a recent move back to BMW. Makes 3rd place on this grid alongside him then a championship rival of the past, Melvin Milliston, defending his 2-time championship streak, looking to make this 3 in the early stages of Season 5. Has to get up and around Cass Van Velzen in the standings before he hopes to do so. Those two joint on points for this round coming up. Van Velzen, 5th place. On the 3rd row alongside him, Zolt Beefgartner in 6th, Kieran Rodd in 7th, Ian Skeen in 8th, Stefan Nikolai 9th, and Alan Alexander rounds out the top 10. O'Driscoll in 11th, Smith 12th, Harris in 13th, Jenkins 14th, Meredith 15th, Wolford 16th, Angel 17th, Greaves 18th, Hart 19th, and Hunt in 20th. Noah Montag on his first session in appears 21st. I can see a gap there up in front of the 719. What's gone on there? Has a driver possibly disconnected on the grid today? Well, that's a curious one. We'll go to find out who that is when they rejoin. Believe, actually, yes, it's, by the looks of it, Brooklyn Donkin, if I'm not mistaken there, has had to rejoin at the back of the field. Very concerning stuff for the number 17. Josh Wellbeloved, 22nd. JM Quito, 23rd. Sergio Belda, 24th. Nuke Waste in 25th. Ivan Sanchez, 26th. Richard Peterson, 27th. And Brooklyn Donkin in 28th. 14 rows of drivers and machines alike on this grid. It is spectacular imagery here in Bathurst. A minute and a half then before the start of the formation lap on one of the largest grids we have in the history of the NLRL Sunday League. I believe the record sits up at about, I want to say 32 cars, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, this is a monolith grid for a track like Mount Panorama. This is going to be some spectacular racing. Or conversely, it could be absolute bloodshed. Here in Bathurst, we see rejoining, it was Gioette Boris to have trouble for MSR. Now, things looking rather interesting in the case of that front row. 5-Star Esports looking to begin the charge into a possible toe of things in the team's championship. Moreover, 2 new drivers on this grid, having made their debut in the last round in Zolder, look to take command of the field. Carlos Dish from Fate Galaxy on that front row, the twin 5-star Mustangs. what are the two-driver lineup that actually comprises the 112 Aston Martin that we saw last night in what was sadly the very short-lived 4 hours of Suzuka, after server troubles forced the session to be red flagged past the halfway mark. Nonetheless, these two drivers formed one machine last night in Suzuka. Today, they act by their lonesome. Taking us away then on board with Carlos Dish on pole position. Pulling away from the field, we can hear the squeal of those brakes as he's holding both pedals in to start building that heat into the core of the tyres. He needs a very vibrant start here to start putting distance up over an ultra competitive grid behind him. That is a menacing sight indeed. Drivers that we have come to know and respect over the course of their careers here all congregate under the iron banner that is the NLRL Sunday League to do... Oh, hang on a moment. We've accidentally gone into the replays. I was kind of doing that off of muscle memory to go into the overall standings where normally you can click on return to garage. Well, my mistake there. Nonetheless, you can see down through the order. And I can pick out quite a few of those names just down towards the Mercedes there over on the far end. So what we're looking at here, Dish, Galaxy, Vermac, I see Milliston, Van Veltzen. We can also see tucked in behind them, looking further around here, we also see is Beefgartner, Rod and Skeen. Drivers here that we have seen in quite a few different places around the world of console sim racing. This is going to be quite a fantastic dual set of races. Of course, the double sprint, the first double sprint of Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League, where technical delays withheld our ability to go live on the appropriate time last week on the 1st of March. We still come back to you here in Bathurst. We would not miss this opportunity for the world. 2:05 p.m. local time. Searing conditions remain here in Bathurst. Not a droplet of rain in sight for the race ahead. The wall of death, as it's known there, along the right-hand side of our drivers to our left-hand side from the camera's point of view. Well, the drivers will be possibly rubbing up against over the course of today's dual set of races, where they slingshot out through Solman, through to McPhillamy Park, and down here at Brock's Skyline. A fantastic section of the track. Absolute cinema to watch as the drivers hurl their machines down through this section. Ultra fast, super tight corners here, as we saw for quite a few drivers over the course of the history of racing here in Bathurst. Things can get rather ugly when one runs into the walls down through the S's. You can be ping-ponged off the walls. One such example, Chaz Monster in the 2015 Bathurst 1000. His Falcon got ping-ponged off the walls, and it was a huge wreck for him that brought an end to racing for him on that day. 29 cars, so I'm told, on today's grid, with the re-emergence of the 67 down at the Conrod Straight. Just getting a look down through that order there, we are seeing lining up 4th, up and ahead of his championship rival here, and current joint leaders, Melvin Milliston and Cass Van Veltzen, 4th and 5th on this grid, playing second fiddle. Both of them did not expect to come into today's race outside of the podium for the race start on both occasions, but they'll have to make do with what they've got. You go to war with what you have, and these two will be fighting things out right here in Bathurst. So, as we begin the formation process on the exit of the chase, making their way down towards the line. One of two races coming up today. Race 1 of 2 of round 4 of Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League. Down through to Murray's Corner. Turn 23 on the mighty Mount Panorama circuit here in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. down through the last corner. Very short run to the line here, so action about to get lively here in the land down under. One of two races up for grabs today. 30 minutes against the clock. 29 cars in all here for the start of round 4. And we're green and racing here in Bathurst. A brilliant start then from the leading Fords. An even better start from the second row behind them. Vermack and Milliston budging up to the back end of the leading Fords. 5:45 and 55, but it's contact almost immediately. The domino effect that we have dreaded for the start of this race kicks off into full force. Oh my word, it's one of the biggest wipeouts we've ever seen here in the Sunday League. Get a look at this. The 55, believe they're hit by the number 1. Then that hits the number 8. And we see the entire grid just pour in out through Hell Corner. All manner of chaos kicks off on track there. Escaping it is our new top 3. As it stands then, Carlos Disch continues to lead the charge. But now up and ahead of Cas van Veltzen to second place. Kieran Rodd leading the rookies in third. We say that because technically a reserve, Carlos Disch doesn't fall in to either brackets. When he does get officially classified, he'll compete in the rookies. And as you can see here, this is far from rookie behavior for the 545. Got incredibly lucky on that race start down through Skyline for the first time. We see what's left of Fate Galaxy. The car is in ruins here on the race start. So many drivers caught up in the midst of that. Among them, Melvin Milliston. Bear in mind, this is a pivotal breakpoint round for him to get up and ahead of Van Veltzen, and the chances for that to happen in the first of 2 races today have crumbled to ash. This is absolutely brutal stuff. We see among the wreckages here was one of the Mercedes cars. This is Ian Skeen, the last man to win here in Bathurst. Now finds himself outside of the top 15, caught up in that monstrous wreck on the race start. I have never in my time seen a wreck quite as severe as that. That was 29 cars. Upwards of $500,000 each. Down through turn 1, and it was one huge wreck. Oh, more trouble here down to the chase. The 599 and the number 54 among several others. We see among them the 117 as well in trouble, and the 91. Down through the chase, even more trouble as we catch here with Michael Harris. I believe the 113 was in trouble. Yes, you can see there. That's Kyle Jenkins up in front. It's even more trouble. We're 2 laps strong. How is this still happening down at turn 1? Oh my word. This has been by and large one of the worst starts to a race I have ever seen. On the lap start, on the lap end, on the second lap start, and now into turn 2. What is happening here in Bathurst? It cannot go on like this, can it? Well, believe you me, it can, and it will. So it stands. What a bizarre start here in the land down under. It is absolute bedlam among the toll there of damage. We see Fate Galaxy and Robert Smith, but that is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the casualties thus far in this race. We catch back on with our new top 3, Disch, Van Veltzen and Rodd. Ford continue to lead that charge. Carlos Disch maybe has yet to check his rearview mirror to see what has happened behind him. His eyes firmly forward on track here, just keeping his head down. 26 minutes to the line. What on earth has happened here in Bathurst? Who is at fault? Asks Christian LeBay. Honestly, I haven't got a clue. That was by and large one of the biggest wipeouts we've ever seen in this series. 5 seasons, 46 races. Race number 47 just gave us a death toll in the pit lane. We have a replay here of that race start, but oh my word, a graphic advisory warning, because this is borderline GT3 gore we're looking at. Getting a look into those replays. This was on the race start here, heading down through turn 1 for the first time. It was a great start for the Fords. There, touch from behind the 55, and that created this domino effect that just collects well over half the grid. So many drivers bashing steel down through turn 1. We see, oh my word, this is unfathomable. Unfathomable. This is, oh my word, I mean, just look at that. The amount of cars. And slipping through, the lucky, fortunate few there. Among them, Kieran Rod, Alan Alexander, Cas Van Veltzen, and Carlos Diesch. You see there for Van Veltzen, he was so lucky to get out of the way. Rod right behind him. He was actually hit there, Alan Alexander, but he was able to suffer far less damage in the Porsche. Oh my goodness. You see here with Stefan Nicolai, he's part of the top 5 here in the number 5. That 5-star 1, 2, 3 quickly dismantled after 1 lap. And we're far from out of it here. This is absolutely bizarre. More trouble for the 54. You see here for the 55, Fate Galaxy, allowing Ben Hart through now to 7th. Galaxy down in 23rd. He's back out on track. Repaired his car. He's up and alongside Hart. Down towards the chase. Number 40, a little uneasy there. Alongside the 55. In through to the chase we go. Behind them we see Sam Angel in 8th place, hunting down Ben Hart. This has been, by and large, one of the biggest disasters we've ever captured on tape here on TRT. And I am still at a loss for words for precisely the amount of damage we've seen in such a short span of time. Well, looking to catch on board. Now, currently, the scope of things in the nearest fights on track. We do have one here. Noah Montag versus Nuke Waste versus Brooklyn Donkin. Brooklyn Donkin, it's worth pointing out, started at the back and is now into the top 10. If that's not some stroke of divine intervention to save Donkin from being collected in that huge wipeout. And I'm not sure what is. Nearest fight then, Noah Montag versus Nuke Waste for 11th. Also worth pointing out, closing gap here, Alexander v Nicolai. Up into the mountain section, out through Frog Hollow, into Reed Park, Solman and McPhillamy. Big step out there for the 315 just before McPhillamy Park. Not feeling the most confident here, perhaps still nursing some of the damage that he had on the start of this race. Alan Alexander being hunted down here by Stefan Nicolai. Watching in behind on the other fight here, we see up in front Brooklyn Donkin trying to carve a gap away from Noah Montag with Nuke Waste behind in the Ferrari. Also close by fight here. This is within the drivers that were caught up in that first lap incident. We see Taylor Wolford up to 19th as he goes up and around Ivan Sanchez down through the chase. It's also worth pointing out, we see here some more fighting, albeit not for position. Ben Meredith, and I believe that's the 55. Take a look up front, though. Cas Van Veltzen has really hit the ground running in his pursuits of Carlos Diesch in the early parts of this race, nearly 10 minutes in. It is crazy. It is crazy. I see there in chat, 5-star Jupiter. That was crazy. Like 2 laps of constant crashes. Absolutely. I'm at a loss. I mean, is this GT3 racing or is it Demolition Derby? That was something. Now, look, I can't comment that I would have done that any better. Far from. That's why we do rally driving. But that was something. That was quite something. I'm still at a loss for words. We see here, this is the fight of 4th place. Alan Alexander versus Stefan Nicolai. Let's go to catch on board with that leading fight here. Cas Van Veltzen versus Carlos Diesch. This could be gunning for a career 5th for Van Veltzen. He has 4 career wins under his belt, hunting down his 5th to join that all-time record, bringing up the statistic here on the right-hand side. Van Veltzen's only 1 win away from being in that joint second alongside drivers that have defined history throughout this series, such as Kuiper, Busch and Vermaak. We see, though, Millerton still unrivaled, but this won't be the scope of race win number 19 here in race 1 of 2. He'll have to wait just that little while longer. It could be the first race win for Carlos Diesch. It could be the 5th for Cas Van Veltzen. Disconnects there from Josh Welbelove, I believe, has just tuned into our Twitch chat there to let us know of that change. So you see here, trying to close the gap down. Now, bear in mind, Ford has maybe a few miles an hour, if that, over BMW down the Conrod. Deesh is aware of this, knowing he can start to build some of that gap up, but he's got to be wary of things down through to the chase and then back up towards the mountain straight just around the corner here. Down towards turn 23 we go. Still following with Cas van Velten in his pursuit of the race lead. Presently, then, it's a bit of a grey area for Carlos Deesh, no pun intended, given the placard, but those grey indicators mean that he is signed up as a reserve, meaning he doesn't technically fall in to either category pro or rookie. But when the classification does roll in, and if he continues to show up to these races, that will roll in, he'll be slotted into the rookies. So we saw this play out in Zolder, where technically, yes, Deesh did pick up the rookies win, quote unquote, but it actually went to Jason Didona, as Deesh took what is an unofficial reserve win. Nonetheless, still took a solid position. We see here, technically leading this race, when he is categorized, this will be a possible rookies win for Carlos Deesh, on top of the outright race win. Now, the first driver ever to do that was Alan Alexander last season with Porsche. We see more trouble, yellow flags for the 34 and for the 75. So let's go to catch on board here with one of those. That's Richard Betterson, having moved from Lexus to McLaren. We saw a little bit of trouble for him there, but nothing with major damages in mind. Number 34 was also a driver in trouble. And oh, hang on a moment. They're out through Murray's. Betterson into the wall. The 34 having been towed back into the pit lane at this time. Also in the pits there alongside Millerstein, Tyler Vermack. These two likely sitting things out here in Bathurst in the first race of two today. As for the 34, that's Michael Harris with Lexus. Fake Galaxy now with the new fastest lap, but he's 20th, soon to be 19th on this grid. Back in the green flag conditions. So, looking at the scope of things here, coming up towards the halfway mark of this race, Carlos Deesh leads in Bathurst, ahead of Cas van Velten in second, Kieran Rod in third, with Alan Alexander defending for fourth. Stefan Nicolai behind in fifth place. Ben Meredith in sixth with Ben Hart in seventh. Sam Angel in eighth. Brooklyn Donkin in ninth place. Noah Montag in the top 10 on his first race this season. Bear in mind, everyone still has to serve from first all the way down to 11th here. That one mandatory pit stop just coming in, stopping onto the jacks, coming off and going away. Michael Hunt in 11th place, Gioette Boris in 12th, Sam Greaves in 13th, Richard Betterson just in front of him there. As it stands, actually no, that's not Sam Greaves, sorry, that was Ian Skeen behind. So we're seeing here the fight of 14th, Ian Skeen versus Richard Betterson. Betterson 14th, Skeen in 15th. Brooklyn Donkin into the pit lane. So serving his mandatory pit stop we see here for Skeen. A driver who has won at Bathurst before. Looks to go up the inside here on Betterson. Up in front, Greaves in trouble. Even more calamity as we hit the halfway. What on earth is going on here in Bathurst? This is the kryptonite of the Sunday League grid. I think maybe there is a reason we've not been to this track in 2 seasons. In that time spent as well at Bathurst, Ian Skeen gave Aston Martin their second ever win as a manufacturer after Hayden Puttock won in the trailing end of season 1, the season finale at the Nürburgring in the wet weather conditions. So Skeen up now to 13th. You see for Brooklyn Donkin having re-emerged 10th place. Oh, hang on, trouble here. Noah Montag had a little bit of trouble navigating past the 91. That's Ivan Sanchez in trouble down through the dipper and the S's as he's being quickly approached here by what appears to be the 113. So this is, oh my word, the leap by Jenkins. This is a man on a mission in that Ferrari. What a leap. Down through turn 18 of Forest's elbow. Getting a look here. Greaves looking to fight with Skeen now having lost out position. Of course, we saw that play out. Up through Quarry. Behind them, we see here the Lexus believe that not to be Zolt Beefgartner, so that leaves me under the suspicion that that is Michael Harris in 24th. Down through McPhillamy, out in front there, bit of trouble for Betterson just before we hit Skyline, having to take the emergency run off. Big trouble for Harris. Can he avoid the walls? Just about. That was sketchy. I mean, for Harris, it'll be, I imagine, looking there, a bit of damage on the car, so possibly some new panels, definitely some new underwear after that one, because that was sketchy down through Skyline. Quickly getting a look in here. This is the current existing fight as it stands for 4th place. Tucked in behind them. Now having attempted to unlap the majority of the field. We see Fake Galaxy, a man on a mission. It's a pity of what happened in that race start. Front and second row came into arms on the run down through turn 1. Bear in mind, though, and this is the beauty of these session regs, that grid we saw form up at the end of qualifying will still be the grid for the next race. So they get an opportunity, effectively a save state, to restart from into that second race today. So hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, history doesn't have a habit of repeating itself, but we're not holding our breath to it. So you see here, lifting to allow the 55 on through, the number 5, Stefan Nikolai. You see there LeBay in chat expressing his opinion on the crash down at turn 1. I'm not inclined I agree. I'm not inclined I agree with that one. I don't think this is race ban material. That's a bit extreme. Well, I mean, what we saw there was a pretty clear misunderstanding. The 55 was going a lot slower through turn 1 than the number 1 clearly expected, and given the fact he also has a car riding on his tailpipe, there's not really an awful lot you can do. He can either hit the brakes and get rear-ended and turned around and create the incident anyway, or he can go up and ahead, accidentally hit the number 55 and create that incident thereafter. That's a catch-22. I don't think that's necessarily fair. In towards the cuttings, big slide here for Carlos Dish. In a rally driver, sneaking its way out. Up and around through to Solomon and McPhillamy. This man is really pushing the envelope out, knowing the pressure that exists from behind from Cas van Velzen. 1.2 seconds, a very, very carefully maintained 1.2 seconds, mind you, between two drivers who know their stuff at this circuit. Cas van Velzen, we've seen share the grid with Carlos Dish before over on VSR. Van Velzen, in fact, made his debut here in Bathurst in VSR back in Season 7. "12 minutes then left to go." We see the hunt still on for that race lead, but now having opened up by an additional 2 attempts. Cas van Velzen tucking in for second. Now, bear in mind, this is still to his gain at the moment with the number 1 out of commission for this race. He is going to see definitive leads of things here in the championship after today. So heading into that next round of the Hungaroring, things are looking peachy for him. He comes into the pit lane knowing that his goose is cooked there. Coming in 1.4 seconds away from Dish. We see here for Rod, he stays out. As for Alan Alexander, currently tucked up behind the number 55 Fake Galaxy with the fastest lap of this session, denying additional points to the rest of the field. Alexander stays out, so too does Nikolai. Meredith to the line, stays out. You see here super close fighting, but it's contact between Sam Angel and Ben Hart, the number 719. Takes a toke of grass with him there and spins around. Let's get a look at this one on the replay. This is down through the chase. We just caught them as we got in towards the run of turn 22, out of turn 21. Little nudge there from the Aston. And the BMW, great reflexes by Hart, by the way, to keep himself self-righted. As for Angel, the back end had a bit of fishtailing there, caught the tiniest blade of grass, and that's what rotated the 719 around. You see, joining us in chat, a driver we've not seen in a long time, joining us in the Twitch chat right now, Axel Cassier, the first Belgian ever to win in the NLRL Sunday League, did so, I believe, 2 seasons ago now, having a look back through our notes. Yes, Season 3, Round 5, Valencia Race 1. Good evening to you. This is quite the interesting state of affairs you join us in 10 minutes left to go then on race 1 of 2 today. 719 rolling back in his pit box after that incident just earlier. Axel Cassier asking no Malwa on the grid tonight. Malwa Racing, as it appears, is withdrawn from the Sunday League as well as the Console Endurance Series, looking to focus their efforts more on the national side of things. So they'll be competing over on the North American circuit. We've seen their efforts already in the Competizione Performance League A in the World Series B and the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, which we covered the season premiere of Season 3 earlier on this week here on TRTN. We came to you live Wednesday morning, Greenwich Mean Time, from the Brands Hatch circuit. That was a fantastic opener. Very controversial ending to it, which we'll pick up on later on into the next week as we get into the second round of the season. Here, though, Season 5, Round 4 of the NLRL Sunday League has kicked off with a bang. Right now, with 9.5 minutes left to go, Deesh leads 5.5 seconds up from Kieran Rod as it stands, with Alan Alexander into the pit lane in the 315. Stefan Nikolai joins him in the pit lane, so we're seeing among the last drivers to make their way to the pits. Ben Meredith opts for an additional lap in the 313. Down towards Hell Corner he goes. And I suppose now, especially reflecting on the race start, that is a rather aptly named section of the track for something like this. Ben Hart into the pit lane. Of course, we saw that incident with him and Sam Angel just a little earlier on, but he comes in now from 7th on the field. We see Alexander on the pit exit here. As it stands, emerges up and ahead of the 117, albeit the 117 down in 19th on a different area of the race, but in terms of track position, loses out to Cas van Velzen, now moves up to 3rd place there. Sorry, 4th place on the grid, my mistake, for Van Velzen. Well, the state of affairs in terms of the power balance in the team's championship has quickly shifted away from 5-star, a track they seem all but cursed at when reflecting back to the 4 hours of Bathurst over on the Console Endurance Series, another series we cover here in the scope of things on the NLRL roster here on TRTN. This was also a track they found great difficulty at, and as a team they struggled quite a bit with bad luck and bad timing. As it stands though, Carlos Deesh, the ace in the hole for them, the 545, on his 2nd race into the Sunday League, could very well etch his name into the history books. The first Swiss driver to possibly win here in the Sunday League, and does so on his 2nd ever race. Now, it does also mark a very bizarre chapter, as since the reserve category is only meant to be a single race temporary housing for the drivers until they're categorized into either pros or rookies, this could very well be the first case that the temporary reserve category takes a race win. Now, history will likely view this as a rookie's win for Carlos Deesh, but this is still very precarious stuff. The data will show otherwise, of course. You and I will see it, that this is a reserve driver coming on to win this race, possibly in 7 minutes' time. But it's still nonetheless a very bizarre footnote on what has been an ultra-chaotic race here in Bathurst. Taking a look with Sam Angel, more trouble for Aston Martin, as now they drop out of the top 10, so it appears. Stefan Nikolai goes up into 10th place with Sam Angel nursing damages. Ian Skeen emerging from behind. The Aston has to hook over to the left-hand side. Not that he has much of the choice. You can see is clear signs that the damage has affected the steering out through turn 18. A day possibly to forget then for TSRC Esports is Sam Angel as he limps down the Conrod straight. Coming up from behind, the number 74, Sergio Belda. With Holkianos, the Aston ping-pongs off the wall. Fortunately avoids any incident there with Belda, or by that matter, with Sam Greaves. That's Sam Angel effectively out of race 1 of 2. 6 minutes left to go then. That promotes Greaves to 12th. Still 3 drivers yet to make their way to the pits, and that's the current top 3 as it stands. Deesh, Rod and Meredith. Bear in mind, Van Velzen looking to return to that podium. Looking at ideally 2nd in this race, will be hunting down his chances for a 5th career win in race 2. As for Kieran Rod, this will technically classify as a rookie's win. This is the same case we found with Jason Dodonna back in Zolder. Yes, leading that category, technically an uncategorized rookie up in front of him being Carlos Deesh. Rod stays out, Deesh is in to the pit lane. Ben Meredith would be the nearest consideration of runs to the pits at this time. We see here the 313 making its way down towards the chase with Ferrari. And really, we've had to stay on these monitors for almost the entirety of race 1 because things have been just simply that chaotic to where we have to have our eyes and ears absolutely everywhere. We see there, that's the number, I believe, 26. Running into some trouble. JM Keto gives way for Brooklyn Donkin, a driver who started plumb last of this race and now finds himself actually up to 7th, I should say, as behind him is Gio Boris. Up in front of him, Ben Hart. So this is the fight of 6th place. Let's see if we can go to catch on with the BMW. We see here for Cas van Velzen now slots in behind Ben Meredith. You see Carlos Deesh right up in front of him. We see side-by-side action here. We also see trouble for Taylor Wolford. Narrowly avoids there the approaching Lexus of Michael Harris. We see here for Ben Hart, Brooklyn Donkin in front. Both of the BMWs super uneasy on the run in towards the Caltex chase. Right behind them, Gio Boris. Things are looking to get a little bit frayed here between these two. Hart v Donkin defending that position down towards turn 23. Gio Boris right behind. Let's stay on board with these three in the fight of 6th. Right in the trailing end of race 1 or 2. The number 68, I believe they're in trouble. No, hang on a second here. Let's get a look with those drivers from behind. Yes, it's Michael Hunt with MSR. And who's caught up with him? It's Stefan Nikolai in the number 5. What has these two got into on the exit of the chase? Back on board with Ben Hart. Gio Boris behind him in that Porsche, that number 67 MSR. Up in front of him, recently up to 6th, is Brooklyn Donkin. Up through the cuttings we go. These two were super uneasy on the run in towards the chase. Just last lap gone. Now things look to be simmering out just a little bit here in the twilight chapter of race 1 of 2. I'm at a complete loss for words for how quite accurately to describe that race start. We've seen some wipeouts in the past here in the NLRL Sunday League. I think one that's still quite fresh in our memory is all the way back in Season 1, Round 5, the very same race that Martijn van Manen went on to be the first ever Ford to take a race win in the series. It started off with a huge incident down the opening straight in Indianapolis. But I don't think many are getting anywhere near close to the incident we saw at the start of that race there. I'm just absolutely gobsmacked. You see here, things looking closer at a chance of a fight for 7th here for Boris v Hart, as opposed to Hart v Donkin. That seems to be more than cemented in place here for the number 17. 2 minutes, 20 seconds left to go. One more lap coming up around the corner for the 545. The leading car here, and we see tucked in behind them by 1.2 seconds. We are back in with the pursuit of the race lead from the point of view of Cas van Velzen. Narrowly avoiding the wall there. Unintentionally camouflaged in with the BP Ultimate signs. Up towards McPhillamy Park then. We're on board with Cas van Velzen, the Flying Dutchman of this grid. Hunting down his chances of a career 5th win. Also looking to elevate his chances over Melvin Milliston for the championship lead by the end of the week here before we get into the next round of the NLRL Sunday League Season 5. Out through turn 19, onto the Conrod straight. Still in the slipstream here, but not an awful lot he can do. We saw it in the last time they were pursuing, that in terms of straight line speed, Van Velzen was struggling to stay with Deesh, even in the slipstream of the 545. I think he's just a little too far away to see anything close to an advantage before we get onto the brakes here at the chase. Onto one more flying lap between the pair. And things are looking to wrap up very, very close. They're within a second to one another. So this is going to be quite a spicy end to this race. Now, nowhere near the end of the race that we saw. The closest finish we had in this series was over in Saker last season. That was between Levi Warner and I believe Melvin Milliston for the race win there. That gave Levi Warner his first ever win in the Sunday League. On to that final lap, we see here things a little farther apart than what we've seen in that time. We see in the background there Kieran Rodd looking at what is going to be the rookie's win. by technicality. Otherwise, it would be to Carlos Disch. He's going to be setting a few very bizarre records, but also bringing glory to the nation of Switzerland, adding them to the itinerary of race-winning nations here in the Sunday League. Permanently etched into the history books, but that lies just around the corner for him. I suppose more relevantly, around the next 19 corners out through turn 4. So looking then with the drivers here on the final lap. Close by fighting still existing here. This is for 7th. Ben Hart versus Gio Boris. The Porsche looking for its chances onto that final lap. Also a fight going on. 10th place Greaves v Nicolai. Down towards turn 1. Where Euro Titans may not have found their way to the race win this time around. They're taking 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. So it's a huge haul of points coming their way by the end of today's race. Seeing here, Sam Greaves versus Stefan Nicolai down through turn 10. And that remains at about 6/10 as they cross the line onto one more flying lap. We saw recently is the fight here. Betterson v Galaxy v Beefgartner right into the final lap. But we're not long before we get to the checkered flag here. Only 3 more corners coming up for Carlos Disch. We go to catch on board then with the Mustang. Making his way out through the chase. It has been a remarkable second race here. One marred by one of the biggest collisions we've ever seen in the Sunday League, but surviving it all. Carlos Disch, down round turn 23, enters the history books. The first reserve ever to win in the Sunday League, and the first Swiss driver ever to take victory. His first Sunday League win kicks off in one of the greatest performances we've seen from him yet. Great stuff for Carlos Disch. Fantastic job. 5-Star Esports with another race win under their belt. The 545 victorious in race 1 of 2. Cas van Veltzen takes 2nd place. Kieran Rod in 3rd and wins in the rookies. Alan Alexander in 4th. Ben Meredith looking at 5th place. A division podium there for the rookies for Meredith. In the 313. 5th place here in race 1 of 2 at Bathurst. Across the line he goes to take the checkered flag. Brooklyn Donkin. That is quite the performance indeed we've seen from this one. Number 17 started towards the back of the field today. Emerges, I believe the scope was 23 positions up to 6th. One behind them, we see here the ending chapter of the fight for 7th. Ben Hart fending off an advance here from Gio Boris. It's going to go down to the wire, but across the line by 145,000. It's 7th place for Ben Hart. Gio Boris finishes 8th. Ian Skeen, the driver who won last time here in Bathurst, emerges from that calamity of a race start for a top 10 appearance. 9th place for the number 696 with Mercedes. Stefan Nicolai ties things up for the back of the top 10 here. The number 5 out through Murray's. Behind him, Sam Greaves by 2.8 seconds. Down across the line then, 10th place. Let's get a quick look in here on the very trailing end of what could be a fight to the line for 13th. Zolt Beefgartner versus Fake Galaxy. Fake Galaxy, of course, with the fastest lap. In front of them, Noah Montag on debut. 12th, Beefgartner 13th, Galaxy 14th. Betterson 15th, Wolford 16th. And as it stands there, a soft DNF for Hunt. Unless that is 17th there. Nonetheless, your race winner, Carlos Disch, and the number 545 5-Star Esports Mustang. On what could have been a 1-2-3 for the team today, they'll be happy to still see a driver on the top of the podium. Otherwise, it is a huge tow of points coming in for the Euro Titans lineup. 2nd through to 6th, all Euro Titans machinery there. 4 different manufacturers in total, BMW, Ford, Porsche and Ferrari amongst that ensemble. What a race that has proven to be. One of the most controversial starts to a race I think we've ever seen in this series, let alone ever broadcasting here in our time as TRTN. The checkered flag then for race 1 goes to Carlos Disch. So, taking a look into that session itinerary, it's worth pointing out here, with double the races comes double the ballast by the end of today. Now, they won't see the immediate effect of that heading into race 2, but going into the next race, they'll find themselves considerably heavier on the run to the season midway. Coming up around the corner then, race 2, trailing on what was a very controversial opening act here in race 1. Let's see if history stands liable to repeat itself here in Bathurst. So we'll see the grid form up again. Bear in mind that qualifying we had now some 30 minutes ago wrap up is what is going to decide the grid for both races. So we're going to see a mirror match of the grid we started this race off with. So it's effectively for quite a lot of the drivers caught out in that lap 1 incident. This is somewhat of a save state for them as they get to come back from where they finished back to where they started to do it all over again. And some comments already coming in from some of the drivers to have survived today's race 1. The number 315 that finished in the top 5, Alan Alexander, reported 20 seconds worth of damage. Show the replay of the crash for people joining. Yeah, we'll try to do that for you just now. Do give us a moment. What we have to actually do is actually go into all of our replay files and make sure that we have the most recent one deleted so that it feeds back into the last one. So do bear with us there. We'll wait for the grid to form up and we'll show you how the last race fared here in Bathurst. So as we see the grid form up here, we've got about 3 minutes. We're going to hop into the replay system just to try and find how we can best show you what happened. This was an incident from earlier. What we're actually trying to locate is, as it stands, the replay just before. Now, this is something we're going to be working on in the near future to try and introduce some slightly better run of things. You see here, though, if we can try to load up the file. I don't think it is possible, sadly, but... Oh, no, never mind. So, yes, this is the current run of things. This was the start of race 1, for those of you just joining us now. And look at that. I mean, this was absolutely ungodly on this grid. I am at a loss for words as to exactly what we're seeing there. It started off... Now, if we take a look at the grid is still the same as the one from race 1, so we'll get into the topic of that. You can see there. So we pause things. This is where it all started. He was tapped on the rear left by the number 1. That's the number 55 Mustang you're seeing there pivot round at Hell Corner. Then he hits Tyler Vermack in the number 8. Then they fall backwards, and then you see the number 8 drift across because he's turned around into the wall. So he blocks off the number 1. Then we see the number 696 try to avoid, and we see the number 315 Porsche there. That's Alan Alexander trying to duck up and around. The number 8 backs up into the 696. The 696 then swings across into the wall, nearly hitting the 315. All the meanwhile, we see plenty more cars collected up in that mess. Among them, we see the 420 as well, and the number 117. I mean, this was diabolical in terms of the race start. I mean, really, what is there to be said? Other than that was possibly the biggest wipeout I think we've ever seen in this series. So looking at the grid, of course, the same one that we saw out of race 1, Deesh, Galaxy, Milliston, Van Velsen, Beefgartner, but we do want to note, hang on just a tick here, Tyler Vermack is at the back of the field in 27th. So there have been some changes. I believe there may have been a disconnect for him, and he's rejoined now at the back of the field. So the new order, Deesh, Galaxy, Milliston, Van Velsen, Beefgartner, Rod, Skeen, Nikolai, Alexander, and Smith in the top 10. Harris, Jenkins, Meredith, Wolford, Angel, Greaves, Hart, Hunt, Montag, and Keto in the top 20. And then Belder, Waste, Sanchez, Bettison, Donkin, Boris, and Vermack to round out the rest of this 27-car field. On board then with Carlos Deesh. And what we're going to do, just before we forget, we're going to turn the replay buffer back on so that we can give you more live replays. Starting from the pits then, that appears to be not only the BMW of Michael Hunt, but as we see as well, I believe that to be Michael Harris with Lexus starting from the pits. All the meanwhile, Carlos Dish, your race 1 winner here in Bathurst so far. Could he be running onto the charts of back-to-back race wins here in round 4? Well, it's going to be a slightly different grid starting behind him. There'll be a little bit more wiggle room for Melvin Milliston, fortunately, this time around, heading into turn 1. More of an opportunity to strike here at the twin Mustangs, reunited on that front row. Team FBR with some serious troubles then. 2 cars forced into the pit lane for the race start, the number 68 and the number 34. It's a glorious sight, but we saw how things panned out through that opening lap. Does history stand to repeat itself? Well, let's hope not here in race 2 at Bathurst. Looking around the field then, as you see here with Melvin Milliston, was slated to start 4th, but because of that reconnect by Vermac now forcing the number 8 to the back of the field, Milliston starts in a provisional 3rd place spot. So he's got clear line of sight up over the 2 Mustangs in front of him that form the basis of that front row. We've seen Dish and Galaxy do wonders before in a few different series. Will they stand to work together to keep Milliston at bay? For Van Velzen starting in behind now, he's going to do this all over again to try and overtake Milliston. Bear in mind, he's already got a considerable wad of points over the number 1 heading out of that first race. Now he's got to make 2 on that and keep things firmly up and ahead. Of course, with the drop point system for a double sprint round, if the double sprint's average works out to be a worst result in the eyes of that algorithm, it is expunged from contribution to the championship standings. So Van Velzen wants to make this work, and he wants Milliston to finish low so that he can continue to take in more points. And that's also a full round, 2 races, double points opportunities sacrificed in the drop point system. Not able to contribute anything for his championship standings. We'll see how that all plays out, of course, when we get to round 5 next weekend. Looking through the field here just to get on board with some other drivers. Ian Skeen fought things back to a solid finish after being one of several drivers caught in that opening lap disaster. He'll be starting alongside his teammate. You can see right now trading positions on track. We just saw all the way through the number 61 of Kieran Rodd. As we see from the pit lane there, that's Michael Harris and Michael Hunt, 2 of the FBR cars. The 68 and the 34 start from the pits here in race 2 at round 4. Alan Alexander had a great race, top 5 finish. Like Skeen, also nursed a lot of the damage from that first lap. Was able to survive here in Bathurst, and that really does seem to be the name of the game, is survival. Everything else is a secondary consideration in the face of it. As the saying goes, in order to finish first, you must first finish. And that is really an optional task for drivers here in Bathurst. Survivability at its lowest possible rate of any track and driver combination across the board here in Mount Panorama. So down to 27 cars. That'll be 25 on track with 2 from the pit lane as it stands right now. Rolling down to the line then, Carlos Dish, already having picked up his first ever race win here on his 2nd race appearance in the Sunday League. Now onto his 3rd here in the double sprint that is the 4th round here at Bathurst. He's won in race 1. Can he do the same in race 2? Bear in mind, if history doesn't repeat itself, that could be quite dire consequences just around the corner for Carlos Dish. Let's see, though, how it all unfolds. A grid now hopeful and looking to right the wrongs of race 1, make their way down towards the line here. Race 2 of round 4 of NLRL Sunday League Season 5, down towards the line. Let's pray this time around we do not see more bloodshed. We're green and racing here in Bathurst for the last time. Side by side already between the number 55 and the number 1. Heading in through turn 1. We watch with bated breath to see if history repeats itself. I don't believe the like. All of them are through in clean fashion. It is brutal stuff. And moreover, Fake Galaxy is side by side with Carlos Dish. The 2 Mustangs are going head to head for the race lead in towards turn 2. We avoided trouble at turn 1. Does turn 2 give us any more fortune? Let's find out. Through Griffin Watkins Bend we go. Side-by-side action in the background between Alan Alexander and Ian Skeen, so it appears there. Heading in towards the cuttings. So then, Fate Galaxy into the lead. Carlos Deesh second. Melvin Milliston third. Cass Van Veltzen fourth. Kieran Rodd in the top 5. I don't believe it. We are in for a clean start so far here in Bathurst. Fingers crossed we do not end up going back on ourselves here towards McPhillamy. Nonetheless, a brilliant start from that top 5 down through Skyline for the first time here in race 2. Getting a look on board with some drivers further down the order to give us this wonderful view of everything down through Brock Skyline. You see side-by-side action there. Sergio Belda and Ivan Sanchez. Actually, that's Ivan Sanchez and, by the looks of it there... No, it was Sergio Belda and Richard Bettison. Sorry, I was getting the two Holkianos cars mixed up. Oh, it's trouble. Oh, it's always going to be trouble somewhere. But here it's at turn 18. Trouble between the 117 and the number 6. Smith and Wolford in trouble. I believe also caught up in there. Might have been a third car involved. The 68, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, they're just passing on by. Oh, trouble for Van Veltzen. Huge bounce out through the first run of the chase. Van Veltzen into the pits immediately off of the first lap, trying to put some space between himself and the rest of the grid for a more comfortable drive ahead, knowing the challenge more than definitely cut out for him this time around. Out through turn 1. Kieran Rodd then promoted to 5th place due to early pit lane calls by his teammate Cass Van Veltzen. He's tucked in behind Zolt Beefgartner. Now up to 4th. Behind him, Alan Alexander by 0.3 of a second. So, for the greater majority of things, we won't speak in blanket terms, but for the greater majority of the top 10, this has been a fantastic start compared to the last. However, there has been trouble towards the back of the field, as we saw already in the case of Wolford v Smith. So Fate Galaxy leads, Carlos Deesh in second, Melvin Milliston in third. Zolt Beefgartner defending 4th away from a double-pronged defensive here from Euro Titans. Kieran Rodd and Alan Alexander 5th and 6th, hunting him down for the top 4. Behind them, Stefan Nikolai in 7th, ahead of Ben Meredith in 8th, Kyle Jenkins in 9th. And this is a redemption run for 5-star now. Jenkins was a far cry away from the top 10. Right now fights Sam Angel for 9th place. Sam Angel in 10th, Greaves in 11th. He's part of this actually, no, just ahead of that 3-car train behind us. We're seeing here some fantastic stuff between Hart, Montag, and Donkin. Montag, though, jumps on to the emergency runoff and takes a bit of grass, turns his 95 around. That's yellow flags. But in terms of incidents, that's rather tame here. And as he rejoins just out through to the dipper, being passed up there by the number 68, Team FBR's Michael Hunt, down through the dipper. I believe... Oh, no, that's more trouble. I see the yellow flags persist. The 68 in trouble. We can't get a view of him, but we know this has happened down through the dipper into the S's. Oh, no, this has gone horribly wrong. That rejoin by Montag may have just thrown the trail off of the 68, who now drops in towards the back of the field, 26th in this race. We do want to try and catch in with the 68 if we can. Taking a look back up to the top 5, I should say, very quickly here. Zolt Beefgartner being pursued still by that of Kieran Rodd. Getting a look in, though, I am curious to know what the current toll of damage is for that BMW. Let's go to find the number 68. We see more drivers into the pit lane. This is the current scope of things. On with Michael Hunt. Team FBR's number 68 started from the pit lane. But as it appears, it's superficial damages. I think it was a case here for him where he was stopped down through the dipper and the S's. It was just an awkward spot. He couldn't reverse the car out because he stood the risk of stepping into someone's way. We see in the pit lane both Richard Bettison, Noah Montag, and Michael Harris. There goes Harris. Montag and Bettison still in. Brooklyn Donkin fighting Tyler Vermack. It's worth pointing out that Vermack started at the back of this field, so much like Donkin in race 1, he's carved his way up through to a top 15 so far and looks liable to move his way to 10th in the next 25 minutes. From behind him, Gioette Boris, we can see there, tucked away in the background in the number 67, marking the back of the top 15. catching back on board then with the fighting inside of the top 5. We see newfound warnings there. A stop and go 30 has been issued for the 95. And that was for, I believe, speeding in the pit lane. So it's gone from bad to worse here for Noah Montag. Trouble on his second ever race in this series. On here with Kieran Rodd. Part of a 3-car train that comprises what very likely stands as the fight for third place here. On with the 61. 95, yellow flags out at turn 2. I believe that could be the end of the road here for Noah Montag. Up through to turn 2 at the moment. Still watching on here with this 3-car spread of the fight of the top 3. I mean, get a look at that slide, by the way. If we just pull up the replay system, hopefully it is working. Yes, so it is back up and operational. We had to do a little bit of tweaking to it to get a replay of that first race. Get a look at this slide here by Kieran Rodd. Wow. You know, if things don't work out here in GT3, definitely consider moonlighting in a career in rally. A slide like that, control like that, that is quite something. Skating up round turn 2. Down towards Skyline then. Still on with Kieran Rodd. Up in front of him there, the Lexus of Zolt Beefgartner, then the McLaren of 2-time champion Melvin Milliston. Looking up over that front row, we see quick gap forming up here. Fake Galaxy out 3 seconds ahead of Carlos Disch, where we saw the first Swiss driver to take a race win in this series. Could we be 22 minutes out from another record in play? The first Austrian driver to take a race win? Well, we'll have to come and find out later on in race 2. Getting on with the race leader here, the twin 5-star Mustangs working together to form this front row lockout. The opening 10 minutes have been nice and squeaky clean for them here. A real Sunday drive here in the Sunday League. We see here with Melvin Milliston taking a bit more of a back seat to things. He knows he's outscoring Cas van Velten at this time, but as it stands, he does not yet know where he'll slot in after his mandatory pit stop. It was a super early call from Van Velten. The 314 just on his way down towards the chase as we see the number 1 currently being pursued by the 599 of Zolt Beefgartner. A driver we've seen before over on the Tempest Motorsports lineup, competes in this season for TSRC Esports. Up the mountain straight, currently 3rd on his way up towards turn 2. So we'll stay on board here with Milliston. This is a rather unique angle. I'm not sure he was expecting to be challenged so greatly by the Lexus in race 2, but get a look at this. Bear in mind, Milliston also nursing 10 kilos of additional ballast under the Success Ballast regulations, and that will only stand to get more if he finishes here in the top 4. Up in front, the 68 in trouble. Michael Hunt brings out the yellow flags, but that's quickly cleared before it can do any damage to our approaching drivers. 68 into the pits, that could be the end of the road there for Hunt. So we see here for Milliston, gliding up and around McPhillamy. He's put some distance over Beefgartner. Oh, it's contact with the wall for the number 1. Just as we were looking over the rear view, a big slap there against the wall. Look at this on the replays. Just on the run in to Brock Skyline. I think hooked it in just a little too early on that run in to Brock Skyline. We were looking over the rear, and yes, it's here. So he just goes a little too early on the dive, and that's what kicked him over to the emergency exit. Fortunately, as it stands, doesn't appear to have done any long-standing damages for the number 1. We see behind Kieran Rodd and Zolt Beefgartner getting closer and closer and closer to the number 1 of Melvin Milliston. Let's go to catch on board with the man in the middle then. On with Zolt Beefgartner in the number 599. TSRC Esports is ace in the hole here. A driver we've seen before in his time with Ford at the Tempest Motorsports team. Let's see what he does here. Caught between a rock and a hard place. Milliston in front, Rodd out back. What can he do in the 599? Now on a bit of second wind here in Bathurst. Number 26, yellow flags out on Skyline. And that, I believe, taking a look here, is JM Keto. Yes, stranded and facing the wrong way. I think I could piece together roughly what's happened for him there. We see trouble for Holkianos. They look to rejoin, but he's in the way. Oh, no. What's gone on there? Oh, he's like a deer in the headlights. Why on earth would he park there? That is, I'm not really sure what to say of that, folks. I mean, did he think that maybe Greaves was going to be able to go, what, even further in on the right? I'm not sure. It's a flash in the pan kind of moment for him there. He does not really know what is going on in that time. Still recovering from that crash, and there he's just stopped. And it was all too late from that point. That's just it. He's just not paid attention to the map, so it appears. Back on with Beefgartner. We note as well that Rod is getting closer to a chance of a fight for 4th place here. Took the provisional rookies win. Now that's still going to count towards him by the end of this round, as we see both Galaxy and Deesh are still classified as reserves. Later down the line, they'll be slotting into the Rookies Championship, so Rod wants every running chance he can get here over these two before that becomes the case. For the 61, he's only half a second out on Beefgartner and closing as he's in the slipstream on the Lexus. Another fight to consider. We see here Nuke Waste versus Taylor Wolford. Down through to McPhillamy. The Porsche having a bit more of a sprightly start compared to how things panned out in the last race. Of course, was still part of that incident down in Forest's Elbow with the 117. Still making up time for it, though, as we see Ian Skeen on an earlier pit stop, not too far away from this fight for 14th. Down towards turn 18 we go. Nuke Waste, little tail happy there. It's contact between the pair on the exit of turn 18 through to turn 19. Into the wall goes Nuke Waste. Huge incident for them there. Get a look at this on the replays. Tapped there and then obviously hooked around over the nose. Nothing Wolford could have done. He hit the brakes after that point, but it was all too late. Into the wall went Nuke Waste. Yellow flag still out. The Ferrari just about got itself righted now on its way out of turn 19. Back in the green flag conditions. Watching here, we see in the background, that is Stefan Nikolai and Alan Alexander fighting for 6th place. Let's go and catch on board with these two here in this newfound fight. Alan Alexander's point of view then, the defending of 2 cars. We see in the background is the number 68 of Hunt, looking to unlap himself, but still sliding out through the cuttings there. Alan Alexander defending 6th place. On with the Porsche then. Number 315. This is in the fight for 6th. Up and around Frog Hollow into Reed, then Solomon, now McPhillamy Park as we head down towards Skyline. And a tail-happy Porsche up against the Ford. What can go on here in this fight for 6th? Down through to the Dipper, into the S's. Watching that rear view, you can see the Mustang just tucked in behind the rear wing of the Porsche, heading down to Forest's Elbow. Very tightly packed in there on the racing line. It's worth pointing out that the fight between Rod and Beefgartner is now half a second away, so we'll be catching on board with those two in a moment's time. We are seeing here the fight for 6th. Alan Alexander versus Stefan Nikolai. Number 315 versus number 5. They're half a second out as well. Going to quickly take a look in then with Rod v Beefgartner. We go to catch the number 61. About 6/10 out on the 599. Both of them having lost considerable ground over Melvin Milliston. The last lap alone, they were about 3/10 slower than the McLaren. Currently looking contempt at a chance of a podium finish today. 15 minutes left to go in the session. Getting on to the session halfway. Still plenty to consider when we get into the conversation of the mandatory pit stop. But for the leading 5 stars here, the twin Mustangs of Galaxy and Deesh working in perfect unison to secure double victories around the corner here. If they can hold on to things in the next 15 minutes, this is flawless execution of strategy from 5-star. So, taking a look at things halfway through the race, we see most recently into the pits goes Gioette Boris in 12th in the number 67 MSR Porsche, but it's Fake Galaxy that leads the charge in the number 55. Oh my goodness, they're even more trouble for Nuke Waste. Into the wall goes the Ferrari, caught in a really awkward spot to move out of the way here for the 599 and the number 61 in 4th and 5th. Melvin Milliston 3rd, Beefgartner 4th, Rod in 5th at the moment, technically leading the rookies here, looking at, I think, back-to-back by technicality rookie wins. This will be more than enough of the running start Rod needs before Deesh and Galaxy are classified as rookies themselves. They're still classified as reserves at the moment, meaning they'll only contribute to the overall standings until they're categorized, which could come up as some rather grim news here for the 61, considering the difference in points they're already towing in here in Bathurst. Behind him, 6th place for Alan Alexander. Behind him, we saw was a close fight for a while here between these two. Stefan Nikolai in 7th place, Ben Meredith in 8th, Tyler Vermack in 9th, and we see there just in the foreground the number 719 of Sam Angel with Aston Martin. TSRC Esports' Aston in 10th. Ben Hart in 11th, Cas van Veltzen, super early pit stop, looking to inherit a possible podium here in Bathurst. It's been a cunning strategy from him, but will it land is the real question. It's a super high risk that he's played for, pitted in the first lap. Currently 12th on the field, slowly but surely inheriting more and more positions under strategy. Could that be the call for Van Veltzen? Of course, not having to deal with anywhere near as much traffic as the rest of the grid, not been caught up in any major incidents since the start of this race. So the 314 has kept his head low. This is a stealth run for Van Veltzen. We'll see where he slots in later on. Ian Skeen 13th, also looking to snatch quite a few positions by the end of this race. Taylor Wolford in 14th with Brooklyn Donkin in 15th. Kyle Jenkins in 16th. It's worth pointing out as well, I believe we are, yes, no, so where is Tyler Vermack, the number 8? I believe, oh no, here. Vermack in 8th, my mistake. I was very worried for a moment there. I was like, he's not disconnected in the time since. No, actually, as it stands, he's fighting with Ben Meredith. Super close fighting, mind you. So let's go and stay on board with these two. On with Vermack v Meredith. This is 8th place up for grabs. Out through Quarry, up through the Frog. Then into Reed Park and Solomon Park. Now McPhillamy Park. On our run in towards Skyline. Very close fighting here. Vermack runs out wide and on the grass, so has to taper things off just a little bit for his run down Skyline. Right up to the back end. That was a nudge actually there between himself and the 313. So they are super, super close together on the exit there of the Dipper into the S's. Down towards Forest Elbow. So further down the line, Hart in 11th, Van Veltzen 12th, Skeen 13th, 4th and 14th, Donkin 15th, Jenkins 16th, Sanchez 17th, Harris 18th, Boris into the pits there, 19th for the stop go, so he'll be dropping out of the top 20 by the looks of it. Belder 20th, soon to be 19th, Nuke Waste 21st, Keto 22nd, Greaves 23rd, Hunt 24th, and Bettison 25th. A day to forget then for Team FBR. You see, this is very close stuff there between Vermack and Meredith. Let's go and catch on closer with this fight. And whose perspective do we find first? It's the defending car here. Ben Meredith. In that last lap, 785 thousandths faster was Tyler Vermack in the number 8 5-star BMW. He's moved back to BMW then. I believe this is what, 8th or 9th manufacturer, but no increase to that number, as he has raced with BMW before back in Season 3, if memory serves correctly. And was one of several destinations through Season 2. You see here in the fight between Ben Meredith and Tyler Vermack, this has been super close since we caught on board with them. Currently fighting for 8th place. We watch from the defending angle over the rear view of the 313 into the cuttings. We go turns 3 and 4. You can see the degree of confidence that Vermack has tucking into the slipstream here on Meredith. Not worried about the dirty air per se, because that car has been set up sharp enough to take that kind of punishment. The Ferrari then, the one with the most pressure, has now effectively been pushed through. Oh, as I say that, that's quite the sizable slap against the wall there for Tyler Vermack. Gets a bit of momentum here over Meredith, but he surely can't think of diving for it down through Skyline. He's got to tuck in here and wait for his opportunity to arise on the run down the Conrod. Through the S's. 10 minutes left to go then here in Bathurst. Vermack was sizing up a move to the inside there for but a moment. Loses a bit of momentum on the exit of Forest's Elbow at turn 18. Now through turn 19 as the cameras try to track on board with the 313. We see that in the Conrod, swerving is Tyler Vermack. Not sure why he's doing that. I think just trying to scrub the tyres off of a few possible marbles to continue his charge towards Ben Meredith. He knows, though, strategy is going to start creeping up very quickly. They've got to come into the pits in the next 10 minutes, whether now or later. We'll see, though, what is the calling for them. Bear in mind the 55 and the 545 have stayed out long. Alan Alexander is one of a few drivers currently into the pit lane as we speak. So too is Stefan Nikolai. As for Meredith v Vermack, they're going to move up a few positions here by nature of staying up. We'll see them fall back in behind, though, in the trailing end of race 2. Things much peachier, I would say, by comparison to race 1. The mood's definitely a lot higher. Now, that's not to say there haven't been incidents in this race. We did see earlier on was the incident for the 117, and this driver on screen here, Taylor Wolford, down at Forest's Elbow. So it's not been 100% clean, but I don't think you could really ever come into a race at Bathurst expecting not a single incident. That's a bit of a pipe dream, as it were. Into the pits, we see Ben Hart. So, catching back in with Van Velzen. He's now into the top 10, so his strategy of a super early pit stop and then just slowly reaping what he sows here when it comes to that finishing result is starting to play into his hands. He's able to just stay low. He's always in between larger pockets of traffic and not really in anyone's way as it stands. So he's been able to keep things very, very under wraps, very discreet, definitely would be a word to think of it. And it's a clever, clever strategy that he's done here. So hats off to him. He's been able to turn this into another possible podium charge. Now, the real challenge from here is emerging ahead of that number 1. He needs to outscore Milliston as many times as possible. He knows he's got a running start of things after race 1, but he wants to keep that ball rolling for every chance he's got, because heading into round 5 is where things could really get dicey at the season midway. Van Velzen now looks in the highest possible chances to lead this championship by a larger margin in the drop points era into that round 5 around the corner. He is sizing up his charge towards a championship. The stakes here could not be higher. Van Velzen still hunting down a championship. He was the runner-up in quite a few of the last runs of the Sunday League. Season 3 and Season 4 were his closest opportunities to fight for the championship lead with Melvin Milliston. There was also that iconic three-way split for the championship between him, Milliston and Vermack back in Season 3. We see into the pit lane in front there went, I believe that was Sam Angel into the pits. The 719 Aston with TSRC Esports is in. So Van Velzen now up to 8th place. And hang on a moment, we do have yellow flags. So the 159 in trouble. Let's go to catch on board here. Oh no! Fake Galaxy has crashed into Nuke Waste on the run out through the quarry corner. This is absolutely disastrous for Fake Galaxy. Back into the pits. A stranded 159 has ended Galaxy's hopes in this round to become the first Austrian driver to win in the Sunday League. It has gone in the blink of an eye. The 67 in trouble, so the yellow flags come back out for the Porsche of Gioet Boris. We see here Van Velzen playing second fiddle here. He's about 7 seconds out from this fight. Meredith v Vermack kicks off once again. Yellow flags still out as the 67 limps into form. The 314 up and around him just before McPhillamy Park. I am at a loss for words here, folks. A sudden shock change on the grid. The 159 Nuke Waste was stranded up through Quarry, stood in the way there. The 55 rolled on through. There was nowhere that Fake Galaxy, at the speed he was carrying, could go. We see here for Tyler Vermack, as we're back into green flag conditions, is up the inside at Forest's Elbow. He's up on the inside of Ben Meredith. Wing and a prayer there for the number 8. That takes some serious guts. Down the Conrod, he's 0.3 of a second up. 5 stars cursed here at Bathurst, back into effect. They still have the chance, though. 5 minutes before the end of this race. Carlos Disch is in the lead. Melvin Milliston's in. Zolt Beefgartner stays out. What is the strategy here for TSRC? They are looking at a serious points haul here in race 2, courtesy of the 599. 5 minutes left to go. Milliston's in. The real case here with Milliston in the pits. Can Van Velzen overtake for second in this race? Bear in mind, the number 1 just drops off of his jacks, but here comes the 314 down the hell corner. They'll be side by side by looks of it on the exit, and we see there, peeling out side by side, the championship rivals here into round 4, right alongside on the run up the mountain, and into the lead of that provisional fight for second is Cas van Velzen. That is razor precise. Bear in mind, though, for Van Velzen, he is on far older tyres than Milliston. It's a defensive act for the next 2 laps here for Cas van Velzen if he means to hold on to what is going to be at the standing of it. Actually, not the run, if I'm not mistaken here. No, it will be the run of second. We just see an update there. I thought, well, we've seen them exit. Then Meredith might have actually been able to usurp his teammate, but no. We see them dropping behind Alexander and Skeen, for that matter. Ian Skeen in the top 10 at the moment. He could rise to even further positions, courtesy of those late pit stops among the top 3. We see, though, for Carlos Dish, this has got to be in now, this lap, a super late strategy creeping up. So we see playing in parallels to one another, super late strategy versus super early strategy. Surely this has got to be in, though, for Carlos Dish. Into the pits, then. Goes the Swiss talent in the 545. Race 1's race winner could very well be race 2's race winner. Joining him in the pits will be Kieran Rodd. Staying out is Zolt Beefgartner. Now, he's got 1 more lap after this one. So, on said lap that he's on now, this is going to have to be where he comes into the pits. He's got no other options. Beefgartner playing a very, very risky hand. We'll see, though, is that a gamble worth taking for TSRC Esports? Tyler Vermack into the pit lane after a brilliant fight he had then with Ben Meredith. We'll see, though, whether he reunites with that 313 currently on the first part of the Conrod Straight. Bear in mind, not a particularly long stop, but he's still yet to actually get to his pick box. So this could be rather interesting for Tyler Vermack in his fight with Ben Meredith. Melvin Milliston still tucked in behind Cas van Velzen. They've got about 2 more laps here, just having started that penultimate. But all eyes shift to this one. Zolt Beefgartner with TSRC Esports has left things to the very, very last moment here, just before it would compromise his race to come into the pits. It will be on this lap, but he's got to get to the pits first. We see a bit of a precarious run for the Hungarian talent on the exit of McPhillamy, but he still holds on. 20 seconds the gap between himself and Carlos Dish. It could very possibly be within a chance of leading if he plays things ultra quickly. I mean, this has got to be down to the millisecond perfect between himself and Carlos Dish. This could be one of the most important pit stops in his Sunday League career. Down the Conrod we go then with the 599. This is going to make for a very dramatic final chapter here in race 2 on what has been such a shock turn of events there for Fate Galaxy, caught out by crashed traffic. That is the brutal reality of Bathurst. What is he doing? Oh, there we go. I was about to say, how has he not come into the pits just yet? He had us thinking. I'm pretty sure he knew he was on tape. Coming into the pits then goes Zolt Beefgartner. You see, the 545 is creeping up, so I don't think it's going to work out here for the 599. He's still not coming to his pit box, and only a single corner away is Carlos Dish. Zolt Beefgartner, yes, he's played a very heavy gamble, but I don't know if it's worked out for him this time around. Stopping at his box there. You can hear the sound of the V8 from Carlos Dish. And there in the foreground, or sorry, the background, I should say, is the 545 going up into the lead. But as we see here, there's Van Velzen, but exiting the pits alongside him, that's Zolt Beefgartner, now making a 3-car fight for what remains of the podium. He slots in between the championship rivals, Cas van Velzen and Melvin Milliston. On the final lap of racing here in Bathurst, so much has changed on the current run of the grid. This is absolutely unheard of in this series. Getting a look quickly elsewhere, we see a close fight at hand. Stefan Nikolai now having got up and ahead of Ben Hart for 13th. But most eyes, if not all, focus upon this fight for the podium. Van Velzen, Beefgartner and Milliston. Oh, hang on a tick there. Well, that was a sizable hit at Quarry for Milliston. Not enough to end his race, but more than enough to end his chances of a podium today. I mean, this is just unfathomable. I have no idea how to make of this situation here. So much drama here in Bathurst. Taking a look here, Cas van Velzen still defending for second place, but this is a worrying sign for him. Lexus is one of a very rare number of manufacturers capable of matching BMW for straightaway speed, but I think the gap may just be grand enough for him. The 75 had trouble. Richard Betterson out on the last lap of this race, so it comes down to a very, very sudden stop for many. Down to the line, though. I'm not sure he was expecting to find himself leading once again. Tried to play his best hand for his teammate, but now it's down to him. Carlos Disch down to the line. He already won in race 1, but it's back-to-back victories here in the land down under for the 545 wins in Bathurst race 2. This is just absolutely epic stuff. To the line, Cas van Velzen for second place. Zolt Beefgartner on the podium for TSRC Esports Lexus. Melvin Milliston fourth, Kieran Rodd, and by it stands there, that's a provisional rookies win once again for the number 61. Alan Alexander to the line, sixth place. Ian Skeen turns things around from his misfortunes of round 1 to another top 10 finish here, even with damage. Seventh place for the Mercedes. We see that some drivers have already dropped out there, so we're going to have to wait for the full results to come in. Tyler Vermack, if memory serves correct there, that'll be 8th for the number 8. Great hustle from the back of the field, mirroring the qualities of another driver, finishing just in behind him for 9th, Brooklyn Donkin. Crash happened between Cass and Millet? No. No, it was a case where Milliston hit the wall as it stood there. That was up through Quarry. Not a lot, not hard. Not hard that hit the wall, but it was enough to kick him away from that chance of fighting with Beefgartner, who slot in between the pair in their fight on the podium to take home a podium himself. That was a very risky run of things for Zolt Beefgartner, but hats off where credit is due there. Third place for Lexus. This is some grand stuff. Leave him to his element and watch Beefgartner cook. It is quite the sight. 1 second away from second. You know, if it was even slightly longer, he could have been within his chances to fight for that front row finish. But ultimately, it's back into the hands of Carlos Disch. But at what cost for 5-star? The curse still carries with them here in Bathurst. They will not be spared of it. And it came at the cost of the 55 of Fake Galaxy. Carlos Disch possibly in some state of shell shock, having gone through what he's gone through here in race 2. Happy to see another race win and consecutive wins here. A brilliant drive for Disch. We also see division podiums by that technicality for the 67. Let's go and look on board here. This is the parade. This is what they do. This is the little what's it? Tradition they have. That's the word. I forgot what the word was. Tradition they have at Euro Titans. Of course, reveling in 2 monumental points hauls here. They'll continue to lead that team's championship. And get a look at this. Here's the parade lap. Cas van Velzen and Kieran Rodd. Behind them, I believe you can see there in which behind him, Alexander and Skeen. And then behind them, Meredith. And I believe also taking a look there, that is... Trying to get a look. That's Donkin. So there's your 4 results. Carlos Disch wins in race 2. Cas van Velzen second. Zolt Beefgartner third. Milliston 4th. Rodd 5th with a provisional win in the rookies. Alan Alexander in 6th. Ian Skeen 7th. Tyler Vermack 8th. Brooklyn Donkin 9th. And Ben Meredith rounds out the top 10 even in spite of his stop-go 30. Sam Angel 11th. Jenkins 12th. Nikolai 13th. Hart 14th. Wolford 15th. Belder 16th. Sanchez 17th, Boris 18th, Keto in 19th. Then looking further down the line, just quickly here, we find Hunt 21st. And this is of the ones that hit to the checkered flag. Nuke Waste 24th. You can see of the casualties, that list is still expansive. And one of the most recent was the shocking end of the race there for the 55. Completely caught out at Quarry. Nothing he could have done. It's a horrible, horrible way for things to end for them there. We see the parade lap by the folks at Euro Titans. Of course, we have a very good standing with those folks over at that team. Great bunch of lads. We spoke with plenty of them before. Great hustle for that team today. They're going to be seeing some fantastic resolve over the run of the team's championship to round 5. Now, speaking of round 5, we'll be heading to the Hungara Ring. Now, the dates do require a little bit of an update, and you'll see that next weekend on the 15th of March. That's all from us here on TRTN. What a drive we have had here in Bathurst. I mean, second to none. It has been one of the most controversial outings of the Sunday League's history. Race 47 and 48 have given us great bloodshed, but it has also given us some of the greatest fighting I think we've seen amongst some drivers here, reveling in their victories as a team. The Euro Titans lineup. What a great backdrop then for the ending of this race. And attempting his best impression of a drift car down towards the chase. Things maybe didn't work out so well for the 314, but more than enough to take the lead of the championship heading to the Hungaroring. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. And from us and from the drivers of NLRL Sunday League, good night.